we're gonna have to push back our next guest because we got a new guest, and that is George C. Romero.
Yo,
awesome.
Well, I thank you, George, for coming on last second. I'm gonna bring on our well, she's not on here yet, but our big horror queen is coming on in a second. And I'm Chad. This is Carson, and this is the boy who had 7, Matt.
Nice to meet you guys.
So I thank you for giving us a little bit of your time, and let's talk some scary stuff.
Yeah, man. I thank you guys for caring to have me on. It's cool to be here. Well, you guys look like you've been live, what, about an hour and 40 minutes so far?
Yeah, we got about 10 more to go, so we're good.
Yeah, we did 16 hours over 2 days on March 28th.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking. Oh, can I swear?
Oh yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Right. We used StreamYard for the Indie Brigade, and I have the mouth of a fucking train rider, so
that's okay.
You know.
Who cares? So what are you working on, man?
What am I working on? Well, it's cool. One of the reasons that I was so excited to do this, beyond the fact that it's for the Red Cross, yeah, I mean, you guys are doing this for the Red Cross, like,
yep,
is that Romero Pictures and the Romero Pictures Indie Brigade just partnered with Heavy Metal Magazine. Their new CEO is taking heavy metal to some really great, exciting places, and for anybody who's been a fan of the movie or the comic or the magazine, rather, you'll know that the movie had this awesome segment in it called the co-pilot, the B-17 segment, and it spawned a very famous character in the zombie world named Nelson. And Matt Medney over at Heavy Metal Magazine and Joe Illidge and Dave Irwin and Tim Seeley all asked me to come on and kind of bring the Nelson story into the new times. So I've been working on that, and we're going to do it as a comic book with Heavy Metal. So that's been extremely exciting. And then Heavy Metal's also, we just announced that they're also going to be publishing the graphic novel of my project called The Rise, which is right over there. Wow. Which is like this prologue story that I wrote for sort of a prologue to my dad's early work. So that's it. And then we've got the Indie Brigade going on, which is Romero Pictures Indie Brigade, which is my show every Friday night. And we actually run a network with 5 different podcasts on it and a couple of different blogs. And we're starting up a distribution label. We're trying to help the indie world out, do what we can.
So before I turn it over to these guys, I gotta tell you, I have a little bit of a story about your dad.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So I live in about 20 minutes south of Monroeville.
Oh, okay, cool.
I live across the river from Monessen.
Okay.
And in Monessen is Tom Savini's school and your dad's school, the film side. And I saw some of the rooms that they designed for guests to stay in, and I'm not gonna lie, I marked out a little bit. But honestly, you rock. Thank you for joining us. I'm gonna turn it over to my crew here.
Absolutely. I like that background that you got going on there, Chad.
Yeah, I live in a church, so.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Hi.
Here?
Love the Slayer hat.
Oh, thanks, man. I got to wear it because the dome. I get a little hot spots going on.
I feel you, man. I feel you.
So it's either that or break out my gel kit and go to town with some lighting. So.
Yeah, definitely want to welcome Alec from Whitewell Comics to the stream. And of course, KatRen Figures is here.
Hi.
So I definitely want to turn it over to Kat. I want you to get some of these questions in. So go ahead, Kat.
All right. So just a big basic question that I get a lot as a horror fan. And I probably already know the answer just because of who your dad is. But what do you love about horror? What is it about horror that really draws you in as a person?
How much fun it is. If you want the God's honest truth, it's how much fun it is. Horror and comedy, right? They're two ends of the same spectrum, right? They share a heartbeat, from timing to, it's basically, it's the same kind of pace and cadence that you have in a comedy that you have in a horror. And horror is just sort of the other extreme end of comedy if you really look at how you make it. And so it's fun when I do something or write something that's horror related. I sit there laughing like a maniac while I'm writing, and my wife asked me what's so funny, and and I'll let her read something. So, were you laughing at this part where he was ripping some guy's arm off? Yeah, because it's hysterical. For me, it's how much fun it is. It's that outlet, that primal outlet for your inner creative, right? I mean, so we've all got it, whether it's if you're a creator of any kind, a poet, an author, a musician, a cook, anybody who puts care and creativity into what they make, there's that voice inside, right? There's that inner creative that that pushes us to make whatever it is, and a lot of times it's really focused and driven, and a lot of times you think to yourself, I got to work on it. I got to do better than the last time, or my next project has to be bigger or in scope or scale. And there's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself when you create that stuff. And so what I think is horror is the most perfect primal scream for that inner creative to just get it out, and work out anything that might need to be worked out.
So one of my questions was going to be, obviously your father's movies, some of my all-time favorites, and I was just wondering if you have like a favorite memory of being on the set of any of the Dead movies.
Well, I do. Actually, it's from a film he did called Night Riders.
Oh, nice.
Heck yeah, I love Night Riders.
So yeah, it's one of sort of his more underrated ones. A lot of people are kind of on the fence over it, but I love it so much. And I was a little kid, and I went to set with him one day, and I think that was the day that I figured out that was going to be the life I was going to pursue. We got out of the car, and he got bombarded by the whole crew, from his first AD to the wardrobe department and lighting and camera and makeup and effects and the whole thing. And they're rapid firing these questions at him. Hey, what do you want to do about this? Hey, we don't have that. We're short on this. We're already out of time. We're behind schedule. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And man, he was the coolest motherfucker I'd ever seen with all this stuff. Like, it was enough questions that, it would make a normal person explode. And he just kind of sipped on his coffee and just kind of went through everybody and just answered them all with like these one sentence answers, and everybody just kind of scattered. And I realized at that moment that it wasn't about being a boss. It was about having clarity of vision. Right. And having this creative voice and having enough confidence in your own creative voice, to know that it's going to guide you in the right direction every time. And so, even if he might not know a logical answer to a question, he just kind of trusted his inner creative. I think that was the day that I learned what an inner creative was and how to stay true to it. So I think that's got to be my favorite memory of going to a set. That and playing with the monkeys on Monkey Shines.
I got a question. I got a question for you. Who keeps on putting me on the big screen? Can you get me off? Thanks. Did you have a tattoo shop over in Pittsburgh a while ago?
No. That was actually I guess he's my half brother. So
okay.
Yeah, that was him. From what I saw, they did good work. So
yeah, amazing work. And a question for you. Since you're from this, are you originally from PA area?
Yeah, born and raised Pittsburgh. Man.
All right. So how would you order a permani? Are you a cap or are you a steak?
Oh man, I'm cap and cheese with ham and egg.
Yes, and a cheese boat. And then down on south side, do you get the cat on the stick?
Yeah, I have. Usually late at night.
Yeah.
But I haven't been back in a long time. So
are you an iron guy?
I think everybody is at some point when you grow up there.
Yeah.
Until so, but not so much anymore.
Where are you at now? Do you mind me asking?
I'm outside Lexington, Kentucky.
Nice.
Yeah. So I left from LA, or I went from Pittsburgh, and I spent almost 15 years full time in Los Angeles. and that was a crazy trip. And I did all the business I was there to do. I was living there to do, and I did everything I needed to do out there. And I just wanted to go kind of get away from it and live outside of it and still work within the business and the industry. So I think I got to a point where that was possible and doable. And so then I left. And then when you spend so much time there and then you move out, you have to kind of like shake it off. So I went walkabout, and I guess I did maybe went through like 46 states in 18 weeks with a buddy of mine camping. And that kind of like regrounded me out of LA and reminded you who you were, and it was like a cleansing of my inner creative. I say inner creative a lot because I trust it with my entire life. So I did that for a while and landed here in Kentucky, stopped through one night, met a lady, and now she's my wife. And so now I'm here outside Lexington, Kentucky, and we're doing some cool shit with film here. So
So
pretty great.
what are you working on now?
Right now, I'm working on The Rise, which is pretty much the biggest thing. I wrote it. I started trying to get this thing done maybe a decade ago. I wrote it as a project to do with my father. And, I sent it to him, which was nerve-wracking because, anytime we show our parents something that we did, there's that, oh, I got to show mom and dad. And then there's that when you're a filmmaker and you show another filmmaker that, fuck, what's this person going to think? And then there's that, I'm going to send my zombie shit to George A. Romero. And then, and so it was kind of all three of those, and it was really nerve wracking. And he came back and he loved it. So my whole plan and goal in life was to do it with him and do it, out of respect to what him and his partners did back in the 60s. And, sadly, that will kind of never happen with him now. There's no kind of about it. I guess that will never happen with him now. Anyway, over the years, I've developed it, and I've continued to develop. And one of the things in the independent world is that, we're constantly, as independent producers and creators, trying to figure out how to add value to our project. And so, for the longest time when I started shopping it around and talking to people about it, it was, well, this doesn't feel like a George A. Romero zombie film. In my response, I kind of got tired of saying like, well, that's because it's not. So I just kept running with it and developing. And what happened was, over time, I ended up with this property it's so much more. So we just announced that we're doing the graphic novel with Heavy Metal.
So awesome.
And then we're going to move into doing the feature film. We're currently shopping around the series, the episodic series for it. We've got some pretty good big conversations going on around that. We're doing some very cool, new, innovative type stuff with it as well, across new kinds of frontiers in the streaming media world. That's a whole other arm of the project. And then there's the video game, the mobile gaming. And then I've even worked with some great guys to develop a tabletop role-playing game in the style of the old Dungeons and Dragons around the property. So it's really starting to take off and grow, just like everything just like every other overnight thing that people take notice of. This is one of those overnight things that's been about a decade in the making. So it's finally starting to go in the direction that I've always wanted it to go.
Nice.
So that's the big thing. And then, of course, I said in the beginning, I'm working with Heavy Metal to reboot essentially their Nelson character, which is based off of the B-17 segment of the Heavy Metal movie from the 80s. So that's been a lot of fun. And then we've, of course, got the Indie Brigade, which we do every Friday night from 9 to about midnight. Obviously, you guys are doing this, so I'm certainly not going to try to tell anybody to leave this and come check us out. But we're there every Friday night from 9 to midnight. We've got 2 shows there. The Indie Brigade is a full-on podcasting network. We've got 5 different shows on the network and a couple of blogs on RomeroPictures.com. And anybody who wants to follow up or find anything that's going on with all the stuff we're doing, you can do it all through RomeroPictures.com. And then the big news is that we also just raised our money to do all of the corporate legal filings for the Veterans Compound, which is the nonprofit organization that I've been working to launch for a bunch of years as well.
Now, do you have links for that? Do we mind if we share those in the chats and everything?
Do it, man. It's romeropictures.com. Easy all day. All of our social links are right there on the website. We've got merch available. We've got a Scare Tactical line of clothing. I think there's a logo for it in here somewhere. Scare Tactical, which is a line of clothing designed by our logo designer. Portion of all those proceeds go directly toward the Veterans Compound to help us help vets.
Cool. I know Alec has been chopping at the bit to ask you a question.
Do it, buddy.
Hey, how you doing? So, over the course of the last 40 years or so, the popularity of horror has been very cyclical. Like it ebbs and flows a lot. And I've heard this theory that it's because it gains a lot of popularity in times of war and turmoil and stuff like that, because people need an outlet to let out that fear in some place they know is safe. Like, so when you watch a movie, even the people who get the most scared of movies, at the end of the day, know that it's fake.
Right.
Do you see there's any truth to that?
Absolutely. I don't know that it's necessarily wartime. Like, I had this conversation. I was writing a script one time and I was talking to a bunch of different types of shrinks and doctors and stuff like that, trying to figure out the human mind about some things. And I had a conversation with this one doctor one time, and he explained something to me that stuck with me ever since. And he called it headspace, right? So if you think of headspace like this, this area here, right? So the idea is in the 50s, right, and the 40s, and yeah, people were stressed out. Yes, wartime was there, all of that stuff. It was all terrible. It was these stressors in life. But at the end of it all, it was simpler times, right? So there was all this headspace between like blowing your gasket and being stable, right? So while there were bills and there were things like that, there was a lot more headroom, a lot more headspace. And as times have moved on and technology has gotten more prominent and all of this stuff has started barraging us at all times of every day, our headspace, our bills are getting bigger. Our worries are getting bigger. Our fears and global threats, the closer the world gets, the more the threats seem to hit us. And so our headspace is shrinking. Right. And I think that we're at a point now where there's this small amount of space in which people can really kind of breathe and relax. It's kind of like in the movie The Abyss, when the compartment's filling up and they're kind of struggling for that last breath of air. That's kind of, I think, where people are at now. And I think that horror and comedy and some other things, not so much drama or romantic stuff. I think that the extremes provide a release in that space. They provide that breath of air that lets you kind of stay underwater longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
But I do think there's some validity in that. I do think that people need an escape. And, look, movies, the film industry, it's a recession-proof business, right? Because people, when times are good, they celebrate by watching movies they can relate to. When times are bad, they escape by watching movies that help them forget what's bothering them. And I think horror is such an extreme in so many levels, and there's so many. And I see another thing on the screen here. There's so many subcategories of horror that I think that there's phenomenal release for people from whatever's bothering them, whether it's wartime, whether it's COVID, whether it's bills, whatever it is. I think that there's a great escape there. So I hope did that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Follow up, totally changing the subject, but a quick question: what's the best Slayer album?
All of them.
So we got some questions firing in from the chat here. So first, Comics Misexplained, our pal Jason Cantu. He wants to know, do you have a P.O. box where you can mail some heavy metal vinyl records or CDs? $20 spend, loves Romero.
Nice. I do. It's all on the romeropictures.com site. So we get all of our mail at a P.O. box. And I'm right outside Lexington, Kentucky here. So we go check our mail pretty regularly.
Awesome. Next up, we got Christy Shin. She wants to know if the next movie will be animated or live action.
Live action. There's obviously animated elements with the graphic novels and the comics and all that other stuff. And then there are some animation things going on, but most everything that I do is live action. I can't draw.
No worries. And then we got John's Comics with Kids. He wants to know, are there genres of horror that you enjoy more than others, like ghosts, torture, zombies, monsters, or serial killers?
Yeah, I love the serial killer genre. I like them all. I try to find something that I like in every kind of horror that I watch, but I think my favorite kind is probably anything that's going to mess with your mind a little bit. Some of the stuff that I like in terms of like psychological horror wouldn't even really be classified as a horror film. But to me, movies like The Game with Michael Douglas, that's just a total mind fuck, are just as scary as movies with jump scares.
Awesome. Matt, did you have a question?
I did. So I'm a big Call of Duty guy. And you know where that's going. What'd you think about when your pops made it in Black Ops, man?
I think I worked out a lot of shit trying to beat him.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's funny. I still play a lot of Call of Duty. I just kind of got back into it. I used to be like on it and like all the time, but I just got back into it, and I think we're going to start up a Romero, like a Romero clan or something on there. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, man. So hit me up.
I will, man. I spent hours trying to beat your dad too, man.
Do you like the new one? You like the new one? It's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Real good.
Not so much in a war zone, but I like the multiplayer. They're changing it up. It's cool.
Yeah, it's better now. It's been a little weak the last couple ones, but this one's it's taking it back old school. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
You mentioned real quickly. You mentioned a tabletop game. Was that the Zombicide from CMON?
No, it's not. It's completely new and fresh. It's not available yet. It's all part of the overall property. One of the things that we talk about a lot on my show is development of intellectual property as a way to add value to your projects.
Yeah.
And we really try to focus on the Indie Brigade show. We really try to focus on things that will help independent filmmakers learn how to up their game or have access to information that they normally wouldn't have access to. So we have a lot of like seasoned professionals come on, and we have a lot of like heavy hitters in the business come on and talk about everything from lighting and camera all the way through to the business and the legal of being an independent filmmaker and creator and artist. And one of the topics that we've been touching on the past few weeks and that we're going to touch on again later tonight with a gentleman named Joe Illage, is the creation and development of intellectual property as a way to not only secure a foothold for a concept, but as a way to mitigate risk to investors. Because at the end of the day, which I'm told I say all the time, and now as soon as somebody told me I say it all the time, I hear myself fucking say it. So what you try to do when you're an independent filmmaker and producer is you try to raise money, right? Orson Welles said it best: a writer needs a pen, an artist needs a brush, but a filmmaker needs an army, and that costs money. I added that last part, but it's true. And so you need to go raise money to make your stuff, because all this gear and shit, it takes money to go find it, and then people who know how to run it takes money to get them to do it. And the best way to get an investor interested in investing into your property, especially for folks who don't have a track record yet, is to mitigate that risk. And one of the best ways to mitigate that risk for an investor, at least on paper, is to show them all the different plans that you have to recoup their money through different verticals. And when we deal in a world of intangibles, we deal in a world where you can't take the thing that we make. An investor can't take a movie and put it under their pillow at night and say, hey, my money made this, until it hits DVD or whatever. But there's so much around it that is so intangible. And now with the way things are going, investors are getting hit right and left with people to create content for so many different platforms. You've got to show them what makes your project stand out and be different. And so filmmakers, producers, indie artists, you can't just write a script anymore and try to get your movie made. You can, and it'll be just like every other piece of content out there. What you need to be doing is creating value, and the best way to do that is to create product. And the best way to create product out of intangible, stuff is to create sort of a larger property, something that can be exploited on so many different levels. And I don't mean that exploit word shitty. That's like legal jargon. They always say, hey, we need the right to exploit this, blah, 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 blah. That's just what they call it. But you've got to be able to exploit so many different elements of anything that you come up with today. Otherwise, you're just going to be left running around trying to get your script made. And you will, and you might raise some money, but then that's going to lead you down that road of, hey, I wrote this $10 million movie, and then you meet an investor that says, hey, I'll give you $500,000. And then, so many filmmakers fall down that rabbit hole when they say, oh, I can do it for that. No, you can't. You've got to, it's a line producer, mentor of mine says, you got to screenwrite with a calculator. If you realistically think you're going to raise $500,000, write a $500,000 script, right within your limitations. Don't go write, Star Wars, if you think that you're going to get a budget for Plan 9. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't know. I think it was one of those tangents.
All right, so I got a chat question coming up, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kat for a second. So the chat question comes from Kachung. He says, does George have a huge, memorable moment of his dad's making the zombie films?
Yeah, but not anything that anybody would, probably recognize. For me, it was, I think, just behind the scenes stuff when I would see him, not on set. Like I would see him for dinner when he was making Day, and just kind of listening to him talk about his day on set of Day, and how like fucking unreal it all sounded, and the conversations he was having about all this made up stuff, like it was actually happening. I think those are the kind of moments that I remembered best from him, because my perspective on the man is a little different than most people's. My perspective, his fans see him and love him the way that they do for all the right reasons. But I got to see a side of him that people didn't get to see, and that was the side that was when his inner creative would speak up, and when he would be under its influence and completely trusting of it. It's a pretty beautiful thing to see, and those are some of my favorite memories of him.
Awesome. Kat, did you have another question?
All right, so I know we're talking about your dad quite a bit in his career, and rightfully so. Just the man was a legend and deserved that title. But as far as your own career goes, what's something to you that you are the most proud of? Something that you're like, this is my baby. This is my thing. This is the one thing. If everything else on your career was put up, this is the one thing you'd put above.
Well, it's tough. It's a tough one, because the biggest project I've ever worked on is this Rise project. But I think if I'm being honest, I'm proud of all of it. Right? It's like everything you do is like a kid. It's like a child. You raise it, you put it into the world, you trust it, you set it free. But I think probably the thing that I'm most excited to leave this world is the Veterans Compound.
Okay.
So
yes,
yes,
it's going to be unlike any program anybody's ever designed or developed. And it's going to be a 4 or 5 month program designed to spend several months helping our veterans kind of get through some of the stuff they've been through, and also teaching them and training them about the technology of making a movie. Everything from grip and lighting to screenwriting and camera. And then in the last month, we're actually going to make a feature with our crew. And the nice thing about it is that when it's all done, they get paid to work on the movie. They will gain hours toward union membership, and then they'll also own a piece of the film for all time. So, we're doing what we can. Our goal is to expand and grow the Veterans Compound over the coming years into a multi-state venture. But right now we're starting it up in Kentucky. There's talk of getting going in Florida. I think it's just from the one-on-one work I've done with so many veterans for the last 15 years of my life, just seeing how the world of creativity and creative writing and creative photography and lighting and poetry and music and cooking and woodworking and all of the stuff, seeing how it can help so many of our veterans process so much stuff that they've been through has been more rewarding than almost any project I've ever made.
Awesome. I got another question coming in from the chat here. We got Scott Evans in the chat. He's asking, dealing with all these other investors, do you find it easier to get projects done your way now, or do you still find yourself having to deal with people who think that they know a little bit better?
Let's see. Well, wait, can you put that up again?
Oh, yeah. Go. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. Get done your way now, or do you still find yourself having to deal with people who think that they know better? It's not that they know better. I mean, I think that what made that whole struggle easier for me to deal with over my life was realizing that you can't look at it like that. Everybody who finances stuff has their own agenda, right? And they finance things a certain way because that's their business model. If their business model doesn't match up with your creative vision for your project, it's probably just not a fit. Don't try not to take it personally. Try not to burn bridges, because in this business, it's fuck you on Friday and Monday I'll call you up with a new deal, right? And so, I think you've got to be resolute. You've got to be trusting of your inner creative. Your inner creative will guide you with regard to what's right for your projects. And it will lead you down the right road. If something doesn't feel right with an investor, move on. There's plenty of them. I know that people say, well, they're not that easy to find. No, they're not easy to find. And so many of them will lead to a brick wall and a bloody forehead. But at the end of the, I almost fucking said it again. I caught myself. You've got to just do what's right for you and right for your project. And if that means it takes 10, 12 years to get a project made, that means it takes 10 to 12 years to get a project made. In the meantime, find something else to keep yourself sane, do other projects, go back to investors that you disagree with projects that you like. Or if an investor says, hey, we love your horror film about a serial killer, but we just think it would be so much better if it was a High School Musical, then go back to them in a month with a High School Musical and say, hey, I know that you said that you were into this. Check this out. And I think that you've just got to find the right way to deal with people, and that's largely what we talk about on the Indie Brigade with me and my producer, Joe Ridgely. So we talk about that kind of stuff a lot on our show. You just got to stick with what you know to be right for your project, man. Yeah, I think I answered that.
So we've got another question in the chat right now. It says, when Tom Savini directed the Night of the Living Dead remake, was George pleased with it, or did he dislike the idea of a modern color remake?
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah.
All right. So it looks like we're running out of time here. So before we go ahead and go on to the next guest, is there anything left you'd like to plug?
Well, can I throw something at him?
Oh, yeah.
I gotta go. I gotta, Pittsburgh to Pittsburgh. Yins don't understand things, so I gotta tell this guy, George. Honestly, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but you were involved in two of my favorite all-time movies, the Burbs and Roadhouse.
Yeah, I was a PA. I was like a coffee boy on them.
But there's a new movie that you have in production. Oh my god, I can't remember what the name was. I watched it the other day. I read about it the other day, and it's super, super awesome. I think you're a producer on it. Son of the Dawn. No. Okay.
I'm gonna have to go to my IMDb page.
What's up, Sue?
Why?
Legend, can you remove Legend? Can you stop that? But no, I personally want to thank you. I heard a story one time that your dad had a conversation with Fred Rogers, and that kind of helped him out a little bit. Is that true or not? Is that a false story?
Mr. Rogers was awesome, man. I mean, you know, my dad filmed his was it his tonsillectomy or his appendix?
Yeah.
His appendix, maybe.
I think it was his tonsils.
Well, it was one of the two. Anyway, he filmed the surgery, so yeah, they go way back. I love rubbing in to my wife the fact that I actually met Mr. Rogers when I was a kid, and it was awesome.
So I never got the chance to meet him, but I did go to Starbucks like 2 years ago, and Tom Hanks was dressed as Mr. Rogers, and it was kind of weird. But no, I personally just wanted to tell you thank you, and we're gonna definitely be plugging everything for you and directing everybody. Again, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time today. Did he freeze?
He froze.
I think he froze. Did he go full robot?
Nonetheless, definitely check him out at romeropictures.com. And Chad, I believe we got another guest right in the
We do, and we have a little bit of an overlap, and I'm waiting for Legend to get we are going to have our very first LCS coming on, but first up is the man that created he's back George
I don't
is
know
back.
what happened, dude. It just booted me.
Oh,
Wow, did I offend somebody?
we were
We
sitting
thought you
there
were
and you
robot.
froze for a second. No, do you want to say where everybody can find you, and we were just signing off, so
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. Please check us out at Romero Pictures. You can find the Indie Brigade every Friday night on Facebook and YouTube. We stream live. YouTube, the quicker one is YouTube/indie_brigade. It's me and my dear friend and producer, Joe Ridgely. We started this thing last year. We're in season 3 now. We've got 5 different shows and 2, I think, couple of blogs on the Romero Pictures site. We're launching production diaries. We've got merch. We've got anything you want to know about what's going on with Romero Pictures, you can find at romeropictures.com. And I can't thank you guys enough for having me be a part of this. I hope it works out, and I hope you get everything you need to get done for the Red Cross and for everything you're trying to do.
hey, and maybe we'll have you back on, or maybe we can come hang out with you next time. We'll have a beer together.
Come hang out. Come hang out on the Indie Brigade, man. It's fun as hell. And then we've got another show after mine on Friday nights. We stream from 9 p.m. till midnight. Got another show hosted by David Madison called The End of the Night. So it's like my show goes till like 10:30, and then we've got our 10:45, and then there's a little break, and then we go straight in to another show. So tonight is there are a couple of great episodes, but I don't want to plug them too hard because
That's all right.
doing this, I'm not trying to take your
No. If you can, we always say open up 2 browsers, but we have Tim Silly on tomorrow or Sunday.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so we'll talk to him a little bit about that project.
Yeah, awesome, man. I just talked to Tim not long ago, so very excited to be kind of working with him in this heavy metal thing, and it's super. I was super stoked.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
All right,
Thank you.